So, of course, the ceasefire ended in the early hours of Sunday morning. Hezbollah rejects the extension of Israel's withdrawal deadline from South Lebanon because, of course, Israel, rather than withdrawing at all, has been embedding itself further and actually encroaching further upon Lebanese territory in the south. And so what basically happened on Sunday, contrary to the recommendations even by the Lebanese army that is supposed to replace Hezbollah military in the south, but has been failing to do so because of the Israeli obstacles put in their way, but also the recommendations of UNIFIL that civilians should not return. Of course, what did they do? They returned to their homes in the south. And this is just a short video report from a local media outlet.
Defying fear and threats, the people of southern Lebanon rose with unshakable resolve on Sunday, returning to their homes as the deadline for Israel's withdrawal expired. Despite a ceasefire agreement requiring full withdrawal, Israeli forces remain entrenched, violating the deal with brutal force. As thousands of courageous Lebanese crossed into their occupied towns, Israeli forces responded with machine gun fire and shelling, killing 22 and injuring 124 civilians in cold blood. In addition to the violence, the Israeli forces arrested several civilians attempting to reclaim their homes. The Lebanese people demonstrated remarkable resilience as they marched forward despite the Israeli army's violence. From the elderly to the young, they pressed on, determined to return to their homes. The Day of Return highlights their unwavering commitment to reclaiming their lands and resisting oppression.
And so what I wanted to show now is just a video that a friend of mine very kindly took as she went to the south yesterday during the clashes between civilians. So these are not armed civilians, these are not effectively members of the Hezbollah military, they are civilians. And of course, the devastation in the south became very clear from the footage that she sent me, including, of course, the demolition of mosques, but not only mosques, of churches also, as you will see shortly. This is one of the roads into the town of Hayam that was occupied by the Zionist forces, and where civilians are still in danger of being shot or basically pushed back by the Zionist forces that are still there. Even today, a number of people were sniped as they were demonstrating against the Zionist tanks being still in their villages. Last night, there were a number of airstrikes or drone strikes in Nabatea in the south with a number of injuries. And again, this morning. And so basically, Israel refusing to leave, the people refusing to abandon their homes, and very similar scenes, of course, in Gaza with, if we watch the following video, you'll see what Hamas is describing as hundreds of thousands of Palestinians returning to their homes in the north. And Israel is claiming that it's only tens of thousands. But what is extraordinary about this, while it's very hard, of course, to describe the carnage that has been carried out by Israel, both in the south and in Gaza, what is extraordinary about it, it's the first time that Palestinians in particular have returned to their homes post-genocide or post-ethnic cleansing. So in some ways, that is a tremendous moral victory.
موت في أرضه ما بسيب أرضه يجي يتفرجوا. هاي الدليل قدام عين ترامب. بلغوا العالم كله احنا مستعدين نموت في أرضنا، ما نسيب أرضنا. أرضنا احنا تعذبنا، احنا ارتمينا، لكن ما سبنا أرضنا. بيحلم ترامب، بيحلم إذا واحد فينا بيطلع على مصر ولا على الأردن.
And we'd actually reported previously on the plans by Moti Kohana, which is basically Mossad, to bring in US and Egyptian contractors. And actually the BBC was one of the few media outlets to pick up this story and to point out the fact that US and Egyptian contractors are now working in Gaza, screening cars as they pass through a checkpoint. But of course, the BBC doesn't find any problem with that. That is not by any means a violation of Palestinian sovereignty, which of course it is. And then, of course, this is all combined with what's going on in South Lebanon, with the increase of operations inside the West Bank, which were predicted with Trump's election, that Israel would perceive that it now has the green light to effectively ethnic cleanse Jenin and the rest of the West Bank. And if we actually look at the report itself, what they're saying is that the operation in Jenin, Operation Iron Wall, will be unprecedented in its size and scope, and that the military operation in Jenin began with a drone attack on infrastructure. He further said, military analyst Amir Bohbot further said that the operation will continue for as long as needed, noting that the goal is to secure the Israeli army's freedom of operation throughout the West Bank and destroy and neutralize terrorist, in inverted commas, infrastructure and time bombs. So basically, Gaza for the time being is finished. The Zionist movement has transferred to the West Bank.
Thank you, Vanessa. Thank you very much for that. Plenty to talk about in Extra today, for sure.